options. It is Christoper who is going first, and he opens up very strongly with that Bridget, which is the ideal, I think, supporter to have on turn 1.
It's amazing. And the great thing with Christoper here is he didn't have to play a Tapu Lele to grab it. Because if you play Tapu Lele, then you played an Ultra Ball, and then you can't use it to set something else out. You've got a Tapu Lele on your bench. Starting with it in your opening hand is so much better.
It's so good, just because it allows you that bench space. So now you don't have to think, oh, I've got Tapu Lele on the bench, I can't bench that extra Pokemon that I wanted to. He opened up with it in his hand. So you can see him here taking a little bit more time, doing that deck check to work out, what's prized, what do I have access to in the deck. Usually your generic kind of look, your counter of things like rare candies, Gardevoirs, max potions in this case. But he is going for that Alolan Vulpix, which we have kind of seen a little bit of play over the weekend with, I guess, as you say, the more American style of this Gardevoir GX deck. And I love that he's playing the Psychic Rolts as well.
He is indeed. Now, he does go for the Alolan Vulpix there. I mean, this is a very classic opening if you don't play Sylveon. Now, obviously, he's playing the Psychic-type Rolts because that is weak to Psychic, whereas the Fairy-type Rolts is weak to Metal, which means the Turbo Arm from Registeel will get an instant KO. Now, you cannot go fully over to Psychic-type routes because Espeon gets a very easy KO for a single energy. So a lot of players here playing a bit of a mixture. Christoper is only playing one of those Psychic-type breakthrough routes, but it is really good that he's playing it here. Yasin, he whiffs a Bridget. He's playing a first turn end.
Wow, yeah, that's I mean, it depends. I mean, he can still get a decent setup from this end, but I mean, yeah, the ideal, first starter is, well, even to get Tapu Lele GX to get Bridget would be ideal, but he hasn't got that here. He has gone for the N. I guess at the moment we just see what he opens up with and how much he can kind of set up. But still, I mean, with the type advantage, you would have to say, oh, he's only got the one Ultra Ball, which, I mean, he has a draw supporter for next turn in the end, so he can afford to get a Pokemon just to put it on the bench for the basis of this turn.
No, this is really good because he's got Turbo Arm this turn. He's got an energy to attach to Registeel, which is great, and he's got an energy to discard.
Just put that energy into the discard pile. So he's got the double colorless in hand, I believe, but he won't be able to use that for the Turbo Arm. But we're going to find out what his thinking is. Maybe he might go for the Silvally and put the double colors on that. That might be a play.
Well, he'll be going for the Type Null first.
Of course, sorry,
but I believe as well, yes, he may well go for the Type Null, put the double colorless. I'm going to be honest, I would have put the Metal Energy. Oh, he's got Celesteela. That's his thinking.
Okay.
I still would have gone for the Metal Energy on Registeel here. Pop the Metal Energy on Registeel. You can then attach one to the benched Celesteela using that Turbo Arm. Keep the double colorless for next turn, because what he's kept is the Max Elixir. If he fails this Max Elixir, he's essentially played a card for no effect when he could have discarded that. Now, I know that 30 damage on the Remoraid might not be doing too much, but maybe Christoper doesn't get the Remoraid out the active. Yasin takes a cheeky prize. It's unlikely, but it could happen, and you'll still start next turn with free energy on a Celesteela.
Absolutely, but I don't know if Yasin knows, but Christoper doesn't actually play any Enhanced Hammer or any way of kind of removing energy, so that double colors will be safe. He's got the Max Elixir anyway, so he has gone to, or opted, in this case, to use the Max Elixir. But as you said, if he had the energy onto the Registeel, he'd be able to have the energy on the Registeel and on the Celesteela, and the next turn he would have had the double colors energy. Maybe he was just worried about losing it if he gets End. That might be a factor, if he is sort of very heavily committing to that Celesteela GX.
I think the big thing with Celesteela is it needs to KO a Gardevoir, but with a Choice Band, it only actually needs free energy to KO a Gardevoir. Registeel, also with free energy in a Choice Band, can get the KO on a Gardevoir. I love this metal deck. Registeel is my very favourite card from Crimson Invasion, and I think against a lot of these Gardevoir decks, just going Registeel, Registeel, Registeel is a good option, although we do see Gallade and Tapu Lele coming out. Having said that, you totally called it, Jamie. Maybe he's worried about the N. The N came down, but the double colorless still on Celesteela.
It is still on Celesteela, but I'm just looking at Christopher's list here. He doesn't play anything like the Float Stones. He's opted not to play Float Stone, a bit like the last feature match that we had. Given that he does have a Vulpix on the bench, I mean, he has committed the energy to that Remoraid to get it out of the active spots, but if he goes straight into that Vulpix doesn't need an energy to attack, so he can get his 2 searches out and try and set up for a Gardevoir, which would be for next turn, given that he has Curlier on the bench, and he's got a Psychic Curlier there as well.
And here again, he's going to need the energy on the Registeel this turn, because that Alolan Vulpix being, now it's a water type, but it's an ice type in the games, which means that it comes over to the trading card game as a water type with a metal weakness, rather than the more traditional grass or lightning weakness, which means that Registeel will be getting a very easy one-hit KO. So Christoper's putting the Alolan Vulpix in the active going, I know I'm giving up a prize here. I know that for a fact, as long as my opponent's got a basic energy, but that's okay, because I need these 2 Pokemon. What I would love to see from Yasin is an N, which I think he's got in hand, but he's got the double colourless, and now he's digging for that metal energy.
I'm very intrigued as to why he's chosen not to play the Choice Band onto the Celesteela GX, because given that it does have, it might be tricky to kind of retreat it, you don't want to have to pay the energy costs, so maybe he might go down the Floatstone route of trying to attach a Floatstone, but the purpose of that Celesteela is to KO a Gardevoir GX, and you do need a Choice Band to do that, so I'm not sure, given that he has had 2 Choice Bands in his hand, why he's chosen not to play that. But again, only Yasin kind of knows. He is in the game at the moment.
Well, I think he's going a bit more conservative here, because he needs a Choice Band at the right time. If Christoper were to play a Field Blower, that Choice Band would then be gone from his field.
True.
So I think he's basically thinking, if I've got 3 Choice Band in my deck after a Field Blower, I've got a decent chance to hit it. But if I've got 4 Choice Band in my deck, I've got an even better thing. Here again, it doesn't matter. It's all evened out.
Wow. And he's even got the extra energy attachment onto that Celesteela. So that Celesteela is now hitting even bigger numbers than it was initially, which is must be a really worrying thing there for Christoper to know that when that Gardevoir GX comes into play, that Celesteela is waiting to go. Given that I mean, obviously it has a lot of energy on it as well, which also could be another factor for Gardevoir GX.
I don't know if the Gardevoir is going to come out anytime soon. What I love about the Celesteela here is that generally people go, right, Metal Deck, I'm going to go Tapu Lele and Gallade. Now, he can go for a Gallade here, but the thing is, he doesn't need Celesteela's GX attack to KO anything other than maybe a Tapu Lele. So he can afford, at a push, to use Celesteela's GX attack to do 180 and KO the Gallade, which would usually be very difficult to KO here. Gallade does 130. That is, if you played a supporter, the perfect amount of damage to KO a Registeel, and that is quite punishing there. Celesteela now threatening a KO.
Guzma.
And I love this play from Christoper. I don't care about getting a Gardevoir on the field if I'm taking out the thing that can KO my Gardevoir.
Absolutely, and this was immediately the biggest threat that Yasin had, was putting too much energy onto that Celesteela, meant that it became quite susceptible to that Gardevoir GX. Obviously, Infinite Force racks up the damage depending on how many energy that you have. So that was kind of, really a worry from Yasin's part. And that was really, he devoted a lot of time to get that Celesteela into play. So now looking at Yasin, I mean, he hasn't hit that bridge at turn 1, which meant that he wasn't able to get out, a series of basic Pokemon to get out into play. I mean, what must he be thinking? It would be interesting to see what's in his hand and how he's going to come back from this.
I think the way he comes back from this is very slowly, unfortunately. He needs to get, the Genesect, the Type Null, the Oranguru. This is good. It's about just accelerating energy. I would go for a second Registeel here. One of the issues is, and we've just seen the exact same thing with Celesteela, Registeel takes free energy to be able to get a KO. And the energy acceleration you're playing is Max Elixir, and he's already used at least one of those. And the Registeel itself, Gardevoir is currently hitting 120 to the Registeel. One more energy is getting one-hit KOs. Christoper does not mind if a Gardevoir gets KO'd with weakness. If it's taking 3 or 4 prizes before it gets KO'd, Yasin needs to get energy on there. And I don't think the Silvally here is actually coming in as an attacker. Silvally is very vulnerable to Gardevoir. It's there for the ability to give his basic Pokemon free retreat. And as I say that, he attaches to the Type Null and says, actually, Ross, I disagree, sir.
Well, evidently he must be thinking of something. Maybe it's just more of a kind of later game sweeper, but I definitely think that I would have gone with what you're saying with the Registeel. Getting those Registeel into play, getting up to 90, and as you say, he was very preservative with those Choice Bands. Those Choice Bands could make a huge difference at the moment. But yeah, it's very interesting, and this is what makes the tournament so fun to watch from an observation perspective, from a commentary perspective. Is that every player has a different way of playing the game, and Gallade comes out as well. So Gallade, I think, is going to be a huge asset to Christoper here, just because obviously it doesn't share the same weakness as God of War, as we were saying, and obviously you have the Premonition and the Abyssal Hands. So Christoper looks to be in a pretty good spot right now.
And it seems like it's almost a reaction to the energy going down on the Silvally, or the Type Null, which will become a Silvally. Christopher's going, okay then, evolve up into a Silvally, and I'll hit you for weakness and get a KO. Because Silvally, Registeel, they do not get one-hit KOs on Gallade. Now, I loved Yasin's play earlier in the game. Even though he's playing the full 4 choice band, he chose not to go and get... He didn't put one on the Celesteela. With a choice band, Registeel for 1 energy, 2 hit KOs a Gardevoir, but you need the choice band for both hits. Not having that choice band last turn really hurt, and that's very upsetting given that, actually, he did everything right by not putting it down until he needed it. Although this is my point about Gallade hitting the perfect numbers on Registeel.
Gallade is so good in this matchup, just because, as you say, with its attack-sensitive blade, he plays a supporter, now he hits perfect numbers on that Registeel to knock it out. It's just such a big asset to have. Obviously, when that Gallade goes down, then you might have to think about recovering it, and obviously you would lose the Premonition. But, let's see how Yasin... Well, and let's not forget, Silvally is actually fighting weak as well. It has weakness to fighting-type Pokemon, so... That's where Gallade has another function in this matchup. I'm worried about Yasin just evolving up into that Silvally. I don't know what he attacks with here. And I'm not blaming Yasin here. He's in a very awkward position. The tables have been turned. Yasin wants to go into this matchup going, yeah, I am hitting all of your good Pokemon for weakness. But now Christopher's turned it around. He's got that Gallade and he's going, right, well, Registeel's not doing very much damage to me. Silvally doesn't get a one-hit KO, but I do get a one-hit KO for 2 prizes. Your Oranguru takes free energy, and to be honest, it won't only do 100, even if you've got the free energy on there. And now I'm looking at Yasin's deck, I'm looking at Yasin's board, and I'm thinking, maybe you just Registeel to use Turbo Arm to accelerate a little bit of energy, but that's not... I think this game has gone downhill very fast for Yasin. I think losing that Celesteela to a Guzma early game really hurt. It did indeed.
I don't know where he comes back from here.
It's difficult because if he commits that Registeel to the active spot, that Gallade or hit Sensitive Blade, if he plays a supporter, will knock out the Registeel, and then following that, he only has 2 prizes left to take, in which case he can knock out that Silvally GX, which is sitting on the bench, would give him the 2 prizes and give him the game. So again, it's a very, very tough and awkward situation to be in for Yasin. Is he thinking Genesect? Would that hold him out for a little while?
I don't think he's going attacking with Genesect, though I could be wrong. Genesect's attack is fine. But Genesect's got that ability. The ability allows you to basically just pick up a tool attached to one of your Pokemon, to take it off of Genesect. So it gives you options to move around. It gives you options to take those tools, move them to other places on the field, and that is incredibly helpful in, making sure that you've got the right tool at the right time. Now, his ability drive chain says you can just put a tool card attached to this Pokemon into your hand. What you can do is stash a choice band on there, and then when you need the choice band, you pick it up and you've got it ready to go. But for now, he's just using Silvally's ability, retreating the Oranguru for the Registeel, and doing 30 damage.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I thought, obviously you get the energy acceleration. Gallade will... N doesn't even help him at this point because he has Octillery. Christoper has Octillery on the bench. He's, if he gets N down to 1 or 2 cards, that doesn't matter. He's just going to use Abyssal Hand and draw out of it. I thought maybe the Genesect EX might have been able to take a hit while he powers up, with Max Potion or things like that. Max Elixir and things like that on the bench. But yeah, it looks really tough for Yasin at the moment. It's amazing how these decks, you look at Christoper, for example, how Gallade has all these weaknesses to Steel-type Pokemon, and you look at Yasin's deck, and then, it's just, you still do so well because it's such a powerful archetype in the format at the moment.
Now, I am looking at Genosek's attack. It does have an attack. It's 100 damage, discard as many metal as you like, does 20 more for each one you discard from Genosek. Discarding 1 metal would get a KO on Gardevoir, or actually at the moment on Gallade, but you're still talking a free energy attack. Now it's got, like you said, a lot more bulk than Registeel does. It will stay around for a lot longer.
But it's got Guzma as well.
Here comes the Guzma, and you've got to imagine here he's just going to attach to the Rolts, retreat the Rolts, and then get the KO using that Gallade. And at this stage, I don't really see what he's going to want to do other than just get a couple energy on that Gallade, on the Gardevoir. There is a route to victory. It's N plus Cobalion. Cobalion's got a brilliant revenge attack that does a lot of damage when you're behind on prizes.
Oh, and Yasin has just conceded that game. And to be honest, I like that play from Yasin because he's got enough time now to recover 2 games, which he can do, which I think he can do. He can recover those 2 games. But at that moment in time, that was a very tricky situation to be in. And he could have dragged that out longer if he wanted to. He could have played that out a bit longer. But, I mean, why not just concede the game? Why not try and get at least 2 more games out of this match and potentially try and win rather than go for the tie?
I think that's an excellent point. I started talking about Cobalion. It's a 2 energy attack. Maybe with a Max Elixir you can make it work. But the thing is, with Cobalion, it's one of these tech Pokemon. It's not a win. You don't just put Cobalion in your deck and go, boom, now I win the game. It is a tech Pokemon, like a lot of tech Pokemon we've been talking about this weekend. If you use it at the right time, in the right way, it can swing a matchup in your favor. You cannot go down to a deck that has 1 prize remaining and 2 viable attackers and go, right, this one Pokemon's going to win the game. What you can do is use Cobalion to KO the only viable attacker, leave your opponent with 1 prize remaining but no good attackers while you clear up the rest of your prizes, like we very almost saw in the previous game with a 6 energy Gardevoir. That's how you can work with that stuff. But if your opponent has multiple attackers set up, you cannot just sweep with 1 Pokemon. And Yasin looked at his board and went, I can't do it. Yep. He's always going to have an answer.
Absolutely, yeah. And especially when you get to the point where you've only got a few prize cards left to take, you have to think about how many Pokemon you're committing and how many Pokemon are getting knocked out in the process. If you kind of look ahead of the game and you think, okay, I'm conceding 1 prize here, 2 prizes there, at this point, it was kind of more or less over for Yasin in that sense. But he does start with this, the Celesteela GX in the active spot. Normally shouldn't be a problem because you do have Silvally GX. Again, N, he's not going for... doesn't have Bridget or Ultra Ball to get Tapu Lele to get him to the Bridget, which is exactly how he started the last game.
It's not a great start for him. He's playing 4 Ultra Ball like everybody does. He's playing 2 Tapu Lele. Everyone plays 2 or 3. He's playing a copy of Bridget, which is actually prized. So it's probably...
Oh, wow.
Just look at his prizes.
Wow.
Also his Genosect and his Cobalion, both of which are one-offs, although actually Christoper's got 2 of his Curlier prized of his free,
wow.
So he's going to be reliant on rare candy.
Sure.
So not great prizes there, because that Cobalion and Genosect, they're in the positions that are usually the last prizes taken. Mm-hmm. That Cobalion could be a really good attacker at the right time, and he's not going to have it.
Say that, Christoper has just top-decked that Bridget, so I don't know if he had access to getting Bridget into his hand, but he's literally just top-decked that, so that is a fantastic start for Christoper's side.
Yasin has really got to be kind of feeling jealous at this stage, because Yasin's like, seriously, I don't have access to Bridget either game, you have it in your opening hand, you haven't had to Lele for it once.
Absolutely, and it's just the way that it goes. Sometimes, there's nothing you can do to control those. He's made all the right decisions in his deck. He plays the Tapu Lele GX, like you were saying. He plays the Ultra Balls, but he just didn't draw them, and there's not really much you can do. But what is good from Christoper's side is because he's going second, he can attack, and this is why this Vulpix is just so resourceful in the game, just because it can attack off no energy. And now he's getting a setup, so he's already had his deck check with Bridget, so I imagine... I'm not sure if he's spotted, but he is going to set up. He's going to set up for his Gardevoir GX, which eventually will come. But he's looking now, and you can see is that a Curlier and a Remoraid. But he, as you were saying, Ross, he does have 2 Curlier prized. Does have 2 Curliers prized, so he won't have access to them.
And if you're playing a Stage 2 deck and you're just relying on hitting the Rare Candy and Gardevoir at the right time, we saw that backfire in the previous game as well. It's not something you can be relying on. I've just been sitting here looking at Yasin's hand. I don't see much at all. He's got no supporter. He doesn't have a double colourless energy that would allow him to attack with Celesteela to take a prize. And what he really wants here is double colourless energy N.
Wow, he has literally nothing to work with. I've seen that Giratina in his hand quite a lot, and that has no impact in this matchup in particular. So I think, is that a type null, a field blower, a Giratina, and something else, a steel energy, and that's it.
I would have been tempted here, as it's not a good play, I would have been tempted to field blower my own choice band there, because his hand is nothing. He had nothing in his hand. I don't want to just attach a tool and field blower it. That is not a good play usually. But when all you've got is an Instruct, getting 2 cards rather than 1 is a huge difference. Because it's not just that Yasin doesn't have anything. He's got nothing for next turn either. So he's basically sitting there going, I hope I top deck something.
I absolutely agree with you there. I think that in this game, I mean, Christoper is going to run away with it if, there's the field blower. So Christoper, I think, is going to start running away with this if Yasin doesn't get something on his side of the board at the moment, or just doesn't get some sort of like supporter in his hand just to try and bail him out of next turn. But as you say, he does. I mean, the consolation at this point is that he does still have the Oranguru in his hand, on his bench. So he is going to have the ability to use Instruct. But I mean, at this rate, if this continues, I think Christoper could start running away with this. I mean, he's set up very, very nicely here. He's got that Remoraid ready for the Octillery. He's into Curlier, and he can just go back with the Alolan Vulpix with Beacon again to get 2 more Pokemon from his deck.
Especially if Yasin's not using an N. And I mean, he lost the choice band, so he might as well have field blown it last time now that that's happened. But what I was really thinking is he needs the N. If you leave your opponent after a Beacon, you know they've got the 2 Pokemon they most want. Now we've candied into a Gallade, which is great. He's got a Curlier on the bench. He's got a Remoraid ready to evolve next turn. I don't know what he's going to Ultra Ball for here, though, because the Curlier's evolved. The Remoraid got put down this turn. The routes is... There is no... Oh, unless he's got a second
Has he got a
candy.
second Rare Candy? Oh, wow. That is
very
huge.
good.
Christoper is just running away with this. I mean, not by prizes, but just by the state of the board. How well he is setting up here. I mean, next turn he's got Tapu Lele GX to get him, I'm assuming, a supporter that he doesn't have in his hand, but even Octillery will give him Abyssal Hand, the ability Abyssal Hand to draw into more resources. And Yasin is just in top deck mode here. He needs to thin his hand size out. He's got Ultra Ball.
That is good. He's going to Ultra Ball for a Tapu Lele.
Absolutely.
What he could do here is attach, then instruct for 1 card, then use the Ultra Ball for the Tapu Lele. The issue with that play is what happens if you get an amazing card off the top deck. It's only a choice band. You can afford to get rid of that. So now he's going to Ultra Ball both of them, grab a Tapu Lele. Of course, let's look at his bench. Oranguru, quite good. Giratina, don't need it. Tapu Lele, rather not have it on your bench. 2 type null, 1 is enough, especially when Galley's hitting you for weakness. And a Celesteela, and we know what's probably going to happen to the Celesteela soon enough. I am looking at Yasin's board and I'm saying, they are not necessarily the bench Pokemon that I would want. How about a Registeel? How about a Cobalion? Okay, we know it's prized, but that would be ideal. There are Pokemon that he would love on his bench. I do not think that is the optimum 5 bench Pokemon. And now his bench is full. Absolutely. And he doesn't run, not any, they'd have any reason to, but he doesn't run anything like an Acerola, which would be able to pick things back up from his bench and give him some more space. So, I mean, those Pokemon, unless they get knocked out, they're just going to be sticking around. Did you see his hand?
I didn't.
His hand is terrible.
Oh.
His hand is terrible.
Oh, my goodness.
He's got like 4 energy, a Registeel he can't bench, and another kind of unplayable card. Yasin is in a lot of trouble here.
What must he be thinking at this point to have he's played a Professor Sycamore for 7 cards and he's drawn almost, oh wow. It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, and this Gardevoir, I mean, he's going to be able to use Secret Spring, get some energy onto this Gardevoir and maybe even potentially go for the knockout on the
doable.
on the Celesteela GX. So
Fairy Energy, double colourless, choice band, Boom, 210. The magic number is 7 in any combination of energy and choice band. 3 on Celesteela means 4 on Gardevoir. Fairy, double colourless choice band, 210. If Christoper can get those 3 cards this turn, and he's got the Octillery, it's going to go very badly.
If Christoper has a knockout on this turn, I'm struggling to see a way that Yasin can get back into this game. His hand was filled with so much that he can't, get rid of in a single turn, that he won't, I don't think, have access to use Instruct again to try and draw more cards. And that is one of the benefits that Octillery gives you in exchange to Oranguru, is that you can draw 5 cards, but with Oranguru you could only draw up to 3. Sorry, I should say with Abyssal Hands up to 5 cards, but Oranguru is up to 3. But yeah, I mean, you can see exactly, Christoper has just found an opening at this moment in time. He's going for the Sycamore. He knows that how huge this would be if he got that knockout on the Celesteela GX at this moment in time.
If he gets the KO here, it's going to be absolutely huge. If he doesn't get the KO, though, then Celesteela comes in. Oh, I like that play.
Yeah.
I like that play a lot. Getting rid of that Tapu Lele. Tapu Lele can be one-hit KO'd by Blaster GX for 2 prizes, so just get rid of it. You don't need it. You don't need any more on your bench. He doesn't. Oh,
wow.
He could just do that, however. Second Secret Spring and a double colourless. Doesn't need the choice band if he's got the energy. And unfortunately, that looks like, and I'm not saying the game's over at this stage, but I am happy to say that it has swung incredibly far into Christoper's favour. And as I talked about in the last game with Joe, N is the great equaliser in any game unless your opponent's playing Octillery.
That is precisely right. And at this point, that's why people run Octillery, just to get out of these situations, not fearing these sort of late game ends that, really punish you so much. Yasin does have another bench space now, but now he's got that, the type null in the active spot, which he won't be able to get out. He's attaching 2 Registeel. Can he get rid of cards in his hand? I don't believe that he can. He's got
Choice Band and Field Blower. He could. That's it.
He's got Choice Band and Field Blower, a Parallel City to give his opponent an advantage, just to try and get cards out of his hand. And it's just, you have to feel for Yasin, because he did everything right to get to this stage. In terms of the game state, he did the best possible, made the optimum plays in what I believe. But just by what he's drawing is just, there's not too much he can do.
We do see a double Secret Spring there onto the Gallade. Gallade's now doing enough.
Guzma.
Going to see a Guzma. I mean, it could be onto anything, but it's probably going to be the Registeel with the energy. Get a nice KO. At the moment, the only thing on Yasin's side of the board that can take a hit from Gallade is Tapu Lele. That's it. That's the only thing that can take a hit right now. And Christoper here, 3 prizes remaining. He's already got a 4 energy Gardevoir. So
right.
2 more energy on that, and he's got 2 Secret Springs available, and he plays double colourless energy. We'll get a 1-hit KO on that. At this stage, I'm thinking Christoper in 2 turns.
I would not bet against you. I'm not a betting man, but I would not bet against you. Yasin, did he draw Katana GX? Is that what I saw?
He's got he drew Latios. He had Kartana last turn. Problem is, Kartana doesn't do enough damage to get a 1-hit KO on anything on Christoper's side of the board. Now, he could play the Kartana to use the ability to discard the double colourless from the Gardevoir, but even then, that wouldn't actually stop Christoper getting a 1-hit KO on Tapu Lele next turn. Although it would make it more difficult, it looks like he's literally just passed the game back to Christoper now.
Right.
And
you would have to think that Christoper must have this in sight now. He must be, especially with Premonition. I mean, he's got Premonition and Abyssal Hand. He's going to be able to dig through his deck a little bit more, try and find the things that you need, whether it being the energies or the Guzma or whatever it is you need to take a KO. So, he's going for N. Okay, so that's interesting. So he's going to go for 3 cards, and then obviously he'll have Abyssal Hand and Premonition to use to draw out more resources. At this point, as you were saying, he's going for that one-shot, I believe, unless, he must be going for the KO on that Tapu Lele GX with Gardevoir GX.
I think that's absolutely the play. He doesn't even need to worry about retreating. He's already got the energy on the Gallade. There is nothing. Yasin cannot, I'm pretty sure, just can't KO that Gardevoir next turn. And Christoper might
He's got the double colourless energy in hand as well.
He has. That's the KO straight away. Christoper doesn't need to actually worry about ending himself to 3, because with Premonition and Abyssal Hand, like you said, it's essentially an end to 8. If the cards you need are in the top 8 cards of your deck, you will grab them. All he actually needs here is a double colourless. He needs to be slightly careful to make sure he doesn't end up with insufficient energy to retreat Pokemon after a Guzma in the late game. But he retreats to Gallade, KOs a Tapu Lele, and I don't think there's anything Yasin can really do at that stage to keep in the game.
I don't think so. I think at this point, as soon as you say, because he has so much access to his deck with Premonition and then drawing into it with Octillery with Abyssal Hand, he can search out that Guzma to knock out anything on the bench at this point. And Yasin, even if he powers up something, powerful, worth, okay, yes, Guzma in hand, but even if he powers up something, strong enough to start attacking with, Christoper just needs to knock out something on the bench with low HP, and then he wins a game.
Yasin's only real play here is Guzma and cross your fingers. Use a Guzma, drag the Octillery into the active because the Octillery can't really attack, and it's got a retreat cost of 2. Gallade does as well, but it's got a good attack, so you don't get that one. And just kind of hope your opponent never gets a double colourless.
Yeah,
and I think cross your fingers, but 2 energy or double colourless, so it doesn't really matter. The other thing Christoper could do potentially at some point, no, it doesn't really matter. The one thing Yasin can actually do here, there is one option. Silvally and a Choice Band. It is possible to get a KO on that Gardevoir. He needs those exact 2 cards. Silvally Choice Band would do exactly 230 with the GX attack. So I was lying earlier. There is one way to do it. He doesn't have it, and that's the game.
Well, what can you say to Yasin? He did everything he possibly could in that situation to try and win the game, but sometimes, luck just didn't favour him, and, well, what can you say? Congratulations to Yasin. He's done extremely well in this tournament, you have to say. I'm not sure if he's the highest UK finishing player in the tournament, but, congratulations to him. And, of course, let's not forget, congratulations to Christoper, who has also got into the top 8 as well.
Yeah, that is really, really good.